And now let me get to Mr. Johnson's bill. Because at a time when so many of our people cannot afford health care, when families are struggling to put food on the table, and we have kids in Louisiana and Vermont who are hungry, kids can't afford to go to college, Mr. Johnson's bill does virtually everything wrong. But let me say a word about what the bill is not about. Mr. Johnson, in his billboard, said that people like me want to raise taxes on working class families, and that is absolutely untrue. Nobody in Congress, nobody believes that we should not reauthorize the tax provisions that protect working class families. That's a bogus issue. But let me tell you what this bill does do. This bill, at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, when the billionaires have never had it so good, it would provide a $650 billion tax break to the top 1%. So all of the billionaires in this room, and I know there are many, good times are coming for you. You're getting a big tax break. This bill would also, which I provide, just unbelievable, provide a $230 billion tax break to the top 0.2%. It's not even a 1%, 0.2, by expanding in the estate tax the exemptions for very, very rich families. This legislation that Mr. Johnson is pushing would provide a tax break of more than $400 billion to large corporations. And by the way, one of the things this tax break does is it incentivizes these companies to make investment in new technology, i.e. robotics and artificial intelligence, which are going to throw you out on the street. And how are they going to pay for all of these tax breaks for the rich and large corporations? Well, I will tell you. Johnson's legislation cuts Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act by over $1 trillion. The Congressional Budget Office, a nonpartisan institution, has estimated that at a moment when 85 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured, this bill would end health insurance for 16 million more Americans. So in other words, instead of dealing with the health care crisis, making sure that all of our people have health insurance, lowering the cost, this makes a terrible situation even worse. This bill, for the first time, forces millions of Medicaid recipients who make as little as $16,000 a year to pay a co-payment of $35 every time they visit a doctor when they get sick. And there are people who have studied the implications of what all this means. What does it mean? You throw $16 million people off of the health care they have, you impose a $35 co-payment. Well, Yale University and the University of Pennsylvania did a study on this, and it is really quite shocking. They estimated that if this reconciliation bill is enacted, over 50,000 Americans will die unnecessarily each and every year. And it is not hard to understand why. If people don't have access to health care, low-income, working-class people, if they can't get to a doctor when they need to, they will suffer, and tens of thousands will die. But I also want to tell you that when we're talking about Medicaid cuts, it impacts more than the 16 million individuals. Nursing homes are largely dependent on Medicaid, community health centers, largely dependent on Medicaid, hospitals, largely dependent on Medicaid, rural hospitals, which are shutting down all over the place, will be devastated by this terrible piece of legislation. But don't take my word for it. The Republican president of the state Senate, right here in Louisiana, recently said that if this reconciliation bill is signed into law, the state legislature would have to immediately go into a special session because this state could not afford the massive cuts to Louisiana's hospitals, healthcare systems, and state budget. That is the Republican president of the Louisiana State Senate. But it is not in this legislation just our healthcare system that would be devastated. This bill would cut $290 billion from nutrition programs. Now, we got hungry kids in Vermont, you got hungry kids in Louisiana, dependent on school breakfast programs, school lunch programs. You got programs like Meals on Wheels, which do a phenomenal job in Vermont, and I expect here as well, right? All over the country. But you're going to see nutrition programs cut for kids, for elderly people, so that billionaires can get a huge tax break. This bill would slash education funding by $350 billion. All over this country, many kids, working class kids, want a higher education. They want to go to college. They want to go to a trade school. This bill would make it much, much harder to do that. A few weeks ago, Speaker Johnson said that there was a, quote unquote, a moral component to this reconciliation bill. Well, I don't know that there is any religion on earth that believes it's appropriate to take food away from hungry kids to give tax breaks to the richest people.